A to the E to the Alexander. Gobby's gonna rise, gonna boom like thunder.
Thank you.
No.
No, those aren't the lyrics.
Yeah, they are.
No, it's rise up, my meaty-eyed meatballs, rise up, and my silver bomb dogs. You guys are my bomb dogs.
Thanks, I think.
Yes,
I
you
don't
think.
know how I feel about that.
I'm so old.
Nor should you.
I remember when being the bomb was a cool thing, so cool.
How is everyone today?
The usual.
With bags under
Right.
your eyes and caffeineless?
I have caffeine. I'm only a quarter away into it, though.
You need gallons.
I do need gallons. I had to take a 4-hour nap before stream, so.
Aha.
So how about that Alexander? Oh, by the way, what do you think of our new background?
Needs more purple.
Jeez. Thanks. I was going to use the Zodiac one, but Zodiac isn't really apt for Alexander, so I chose the Hyde one.
The core that we see in Alexander is very much that color, so it seems appropriate.
Yes,
Thank you for your fantastic work. This was yours, Cobb, right?
this was.
Yeah.
It looks amazing.
Thank you.
We are very proud of the work we do. And also at the very end of the episode, we're going to be giving away 3 Cruise Chaser mounts through Stream Marbles. The top 3 will be able to procure themselves a nice, shiny, brand new Cruise Chaser mount to fly through the skies and look cool doing it.
Can I win?
No.
No.
Will you buy me one?
No.
Why am I here?
Wow. Amy, can you turn Neela up in Discord some?
A bit.
Yes, I am here to suffer.
Oh my.
Wow.
It's okay chatting to Mary.
He is up all the way.
I should bonk money on principle.
If I'm still
No.
quiet, I can bump the gain on my end too.
How is that now?
Much better.
Oh man, the music is so good in Alexander.
It is.
It confused me at first, but I grew to love it.
I had the same reaction actually, because I remember my
Same.
friends being like, "Oh yeah, forward and back," and I was listening to it. And I was like, "Yeah, it's kind of repetitive." But once I got into, especially things where the certain parts of the chorus would repeat in a different piece, then I was like, "Oh, I see how this is coming together."
Is that better? Speak, Neela.
Could you not hear me speaking, or do I need to speak yet more?
I adjusted the audio.
Very well.
Anyways, let's say we move on into the PowerPoints, shall we?
I'm not gonna lie. The first time I went through Alexander, I was like, "Wow, that's so cool." I have no idea what happened. I was quite confused on the point until someone broke it down and really explained it to me.
Same. It's not a very it's not linear storytelling like 14
No,
usually does.
it goes forward and back, you know?
Yep.
God damn it.
Which makes sense given the topic of the thing is indeed time travel.
Yes.
So,
Which is usually convoluted and confusing, but
episode 25.
in this case they do a really good job.
The Wings of Time. Who likes wibbly wobbly timey wimey shit?
I do.
Me.
I hate it because I'm a fan of Fire Emblem and it's really bad there.
Oh no. Perhaps part of the reason why I enjoy it is I haven't read or watched too many time travel stories, because they can get you know, a thing that artists and writers included will do where they're just trying to show off how
No,
amazing
Midnight.
and
Don't remind
convoluted.
me.
It can go way too far.
Ugh. I've played through those games so many times, and it still is confusing at times. They're still great games, though. Anyways. A most unusual primal. So, the Goblins. This is actually the first primal that our first raid. 8-man, and it's 12 floors. First one that we fight in Heaven's Ward. I thought this was a great fight. An actual wonderful primal for us to start with after Bahamut. He was summoned by the Illuminati. He was a Colossus in the Thaliac River. He actually... Did he appear out of nowhere? I mean, was he actually just there?
It was underwater.
I actually went into New Game Plus to check because I could not remember. And when I went back into that previous state, what there is a big bubble with the rocks and stuff embedded in it, and then there's what looks like ruins. Like, it just looks like the Charlian architecture, the white with the goldish.
So he did exist beforehand.
Yes, at the very end of Heaven's Word, we see it rise up out of the lake. Well, that gets into the time travel.
And you know, the funny thing is, and just the massive scope of this thing, when you go inside of it, it almost looks like a city. Like, it's enormous. And
Yeah.
some of the areas that you fight in, they almost don't seem like it would fit or would be proportionate to the size of Alexander itself. There is parts where it is just like a full elevator fight, or there's parts where it's literally just like an entire arena and stories upon stories of mechanical parts. But you know, this is a mechanical primal with the ability to manipulate time and holy. Neela, Cobb.
I was going to say time and space being as linked as they are, Alexander may also be bigger on the inside.
It's true.
I was about to say the same thing. It reminds me very much of that Doctor Who thing.
Which makes sense given that playing with time and space like that is they end up inextricably linked by the laws of physics.
I agree to an extent. I would say that Alexander was very much more focused on time than space, though, because Omega deals more with space and creating and translocating and traversing the rift,
Yes.
whereas Alexander is mostly confined to manipulation of time and speed.
I agree. I believe that makes perfect sense. The two are basically fundamentally linked principles, but one is the focus here.
Right. And I mean, I can reconcile it in my head if I think about it and say, okay, Alexander, all these pieces of this city existed in Alexander at different points in time. Alexander's just making them exist all at the same time and spacing them out.
Which is cool in a way, because you wouldn't think that all of this exists in a 100-story primal. You know, this things as big as a city, or you know, just a small little elevator shaft. You know, it's not like he can control space, but he controls time. So it could be going back and forth in time to when he was bigger or when he was, you know, smaller.
Or he could cast Mini on everyone as soon as they walk through the door.
I love it.
Just keep giving him powers. That's right.
Yeah.
I will say though, one of the reasons I titled it Most Unusual Primal is that I think he was an excellent choice. The whole concept of Alexander was an excellent choice for the raid series, because something like this you could never do it credit in a primal quest line. You couldn't fit all that information, all that complexity in.
I agree, and it really took me going through the quest line to admit to that. When I remember when they first announced it, I was like, Alexander, what? And I was not really too hyped for it until I got into it, and I was like, okay, this is strange and weird, and the goblins are hysterical, and I need more.
Absolutely.
And
the cat.
They're called the Illuminati too.
And the cat. which I forgot her name.
Shanoa.
Chenoa, thank
Sure.
you. I wrote it down and I forgot it. She was just so omnipresent everywhere and cute and lovable, but mischievous at the same time.
Mhm.
And to have such a big role in the storyline was kind of mind blowing for me because I thought it was just a cat being a cat.
Well,
Oh,
she
yeah.
was also called Schrodinger whenever she was found at Idleshire, which
There
also
were-
refers to Schrodinger's cat.
Right.
There were 2 at that point in time, which is why that name was so apt. But we'll get into that later.
Yes.
Basically, and it should be mentioned, the Illuminati mentioned here, this isn't their first appearance in the story. We're first introduced to them, I believe, with Brave Fox's quest.
Yes.
Yes.
He wants to get the cheese recipe that they
Secret.
want to hoard and keep secret, and I believe we also meet them in Brave Fox's Long Stop Hard.
We do. They are trying to steal once again the secrets of Gabi cheese. They tongue flap at each other, and then we kick the snot out of the Gabi machine, Mark II, and then Ray Fox makes off with the jingly shines.
I love how you have them memorized.
And moreover, she is inclined to share it at large, whereas the Illuminati want to keep it secret, which is a theme we'll see again and again through Alexander.
Absolutely. And by the way, in case you did not know, Ray Fox is female.
Oh yeah, it might be worth mentioning the naming convention. If it ends in IX, that's male, like Quick Thinks. I guess his is weird because of his thing. And then like Brave Flocks or Round Rocks are both female because it ends in OX.
Right.
Naming
I'm going to call
convention.
myself Slow Thinks, No Thoughts.
Terrible name.
That is a
That's a
terrible
great name.
name.
I mean, it's funny.
Moving
But
on.
you think many good thoughts.
Going on to the Illuminati themselves, we do meet them several times in the story, both early on and later on, because Brave Flock's Hard did not come in till later. First they went after the cheese, then they went after the cheese yet again, and now we meet them in the ruins of Old Charlayan. Well, not Old Charlayan, but New Charlayan. And now they're summoning a primal.
Yeah, that kind of escalated really quickly for me.
Really
They're like,
want that cheese.
yeah, it's like, you're not getting us the cheese. We're going to try and steal it. Okay, you're not going to let us steal it. We're going to summon a giant city primal and just go back in time and just take it.
Well, the themes here, though, are very interesting to me. I pay a lot of attention to narrative themes. Basically, the Illuminati believe themselves to be the ones who should inherit the world, the ones who should control it, and that everyone else should fall in line with them. You're not with us, you're against us, but we run everything. Whereas the rest of us are like, no, knowledge should be shared, not hoarded. Which is extra funny considering, well, again, the origin of the Scions, but then that's part of the reason why they did not go back to Old Charlayan and instead stayed in Eorzea to help, because they did not agree with that.
Part of the reason, yes. I also feel like they felt like they did owe a debt to help rebuild and keep Eorzea safe from the primal threat after the calamity.
Exactly.
So
the oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so the Illuminati summon this primal. We don't know right away that it's the Illuminati, but they intercept these coded transmissions, and they needed to figure out what it says. That led us to the Big West short stop, where we meet Backrix, the fellow that's taking the notes and writes everything that occurs to him, all the history, and then Roundrocks, who just is a kid with a bunch of cool junk, and that's when we find Roundrocks' glowstone. That glowstone, as Mead comes up and tells us, doesn't tell us right away, but we find out that it's a piece of the Enigma Codex.
Yeah, Korath. The Charlayan just kind of settled there and didn't. Apparently, it takes more than a Charlayan scholar to summon the city fortress of Alexander.
As I recall, I think they said that they described it as a Charlayan in the end of the Heavensward scene. I think they described it as like a Charlayan defense machine.
Defensive
that may just
mechanism.
be that may have been ignorance of what it is, or I don't know.
That sounds like ignorance.
Anyway, the Enigma Codex. Let's move on to that. So it was a blueprint of myriad technical wonders. And
Sorry,
go ahead. No.
They tell us that it was written hundreds of years in the past. Personally, I'm extremely skeptical of that claim. Hundreds of years ago does not seem long enough ago for a crystal pyramid that acts just like an ancient concept matrix, but we don't have any solid answer on that. I'm just extremely suspicious of that number.
We are. And I've got to collect my thoughts on this one. Go ahead.
Sorry. But anyway, we're told it has a number of blueprint type plans inside of it, but the only one we really know about and the one that they tried to do was Alexander, a walking citadel that was intended and designed to be a bastion of reason and logic. A shining sort of city on a hill idea, essentially.
Yeah, and I could see that as far as using crystals for storage. We know the Allegans kind of dabbled in that, not to the quality or size of the ancients, but if you look at the aetheryte crystals, they kind of facilitate travel between each other and the aether. To fast travel around Eorzea. So I don't think it's necessarily out of the realm of possibility that someone did develop a crystalline structure that could keep blueprints like that aren't terribly complex when compared to a concept crystal, but are still useful enough that they can be used to build things.
It's definitely possible. I'm actually extremely curious about the Enigma Codex. I wonder if it's like some ancient, and that could be little a ancient, just very old, or capital A ancient, actually, from the ancients' concept or design, or if it was made more recently, if it was made in the time afterward, how it was made, because it's just this cone that's black, and then if you really, really believe in it, it glows and tells you things. It's pretty wild.
It is. And we know from the story that Maid, who is the Aura that you meet in the storyline, the blue-haired one, she's introduced as a treasure hunter. And you usually see her along with Roundrox in the story, and they both kind of share a special bond over finding the shiny objects. And she is in search of the Enigma Codex as well, but it isn't really apparent at the time. She just kind of leaves it hidden and kind of uses us, which people are wont to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did appreciate having a machinist in a storyline that wasn't Stefan Avian. So I thought that was cool. But I really didn't like her at first when she first came out. I was like, who is this? She's kind of not annoying, but abrasive. If you couldn't tell, I didn't like Alexander the first time I went in there. I did warm up to it a lot, though, as it completed.
I didn't like her from the start either. She just sort of walks up and is like, yeah, I can help you. Here's some information. Here's this. Let's do that. And I'm like, I don't trust you. And as we'll get to soon, I was finally like, I knew it! We shouldn't have trusted her.
Yeah, exactly.
Same.
Speaking of the she's the one who essentially tells us that that Roundrox's glowstone is actually a piece of the Illuminati. A piece of the Enigma Codex.
Yes.
And the fact that Roundrox can make it glow means that Roundrox can use the Codex.
Yeah. And Atma Prime brings up a good question in chat. Was Alexander there the whole time? It was kind of confusing with the time travel shenanigans. It was, and we will be covering that in a little bit.
I disagree, and we will be covering that in a little bit.
I want to bring up something here too, to answer a question or a thought from earlier. Quick Things came across the Enigma Codex that included the plans for a walking citadel that could sustain many scholars as they studied the realm. So yes, it was a construct.
My God, it's Howl's Moving Castle.
It was.
Except they summoned it instead of creating it from, metal in their hands.
The fools.
At the time, I'm sure it seemed to them like a very clever and quick way to do it. Unfortunately, that means that instead of just subsisting on steam and great fires or whatever, it was draining the land dry. As they actually mentioned, it was only active for a few seconds there at the end of Heavensward, and it had already drained a significant portion of the Dravanian hinterland.
Now, the primal itself is the one with the wings, not the citadel itself.
Yes, but I don't believe the Citadel can do anything like move or travel through time
without that. Yeah, it's the primal, the one with the wings is the one that we see controlling. Yeah, the core. Yeah. Without that, it has no means of moving.
Indeed.
And did we? Yeah, we went over Alexander, a walking citadel, bastion of reason and logic. So we see at the end, or near the end, that it has the ability to kind of pull a Doctor Strange and kind of calculate timelines in all possible ways and different meanings. We see him at the end. He goes through every possible calculation and timeline and basically judges that we are not worthy, and begins to divert our timeline, and we have to stop it.
Yeah, we suck.
Well, we'll just have to prove otherwise.
Yeah, that was, and for those that didn't pay attention in why did I say E? A11. At the very ending cutscene after Cruise Chaser, you are stuck in a temporal prison and are about to be blasted by Alexander, but are freed at the very last moment and jump away. Fast forward.
Probably go through it a little more chronologically, but yes.
Go ahead then.
Sorry. We could probably go to the next slide.
Okay. I actually didn't look through these slides yet. The Folly of Youth. Take it away, Neela.
Well, when seeing the sight of Roundrox's glowstone, and moreover the sight of it glowing in Roundrox's hand, realizing it's a piece of the Enigma Codex, prompts me to speak a bit of her past. Basically of her originally wanting to summon it with her friends, her other people of her tribe. They were seeking actually to find sense in a world that seemed so broken. They really wanted to find logic and reason to it, so that what they ended up doing was assembling the Enigma Codex. Creating the Enigma Codex? I'm actually not clear on that. And then attempting to make Alexander. We find out later what happens to them. She does not go into it right away. And then Roundrox actually gives Mead the glowstone because she wants to see her happy, and she wants to make, she's like, this is a gift. And that's when Mead tells us that only a few people can actually see the Enigma Codex. Only a few can actually activate it the way Roundrox can. As we find out later, she herself had been able to, but she no longer can. She lost that ability when she lost her love. And then the part that I alluded to before, where I was like, I knew it, I knew we couldn't trust her. She seems to be giving the piece over to the Illuminati. She's certainly talking to them. Speaking of, that's about when we get to really meet Quick Thinks All Thoughts, and he talks a lot about, oh, the future is set, I know everything, I was chosen by time to lead the true timeline sort of statements. And eventually Mead does confess and admit that she had been one of the ones trying to summon it, and the one that she loved, Diane, was absorbed into the primal, and she just wants to see him again. And so that's why she was essentially using both us and the Illuminati to try and summon Alexander back so she could see her love again.
Most of the group that she belonged to was killed too, as well. They were the only survivors.
They were the only ones left, and then she was utterly alone after their deaths and Diane's loss. To me, this is an interesting take. the time travel aspects of the story are interesting to me, but they fade away quickly. This was the moment it really started to grip me when I realized, wait, there's a deep emotional component here. She doesn't just want to make a city because it's cool. Like Quick Thinks wants to make a city because and be in charge of it because he wants power and he wants to control the future. She just wants to see her love once more, which is kind of tragic.
Kind of. It wasn't until they did the loop, though, that it really grabbed me.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, it's right about then that Roundrocks gets captured by the Illuminati, and the party returns to Backrix, and he's like, "Why are you back? You guys just left." And we're like, "Oh no, there's time shenanigans. Could it be? Is it possible?" Spoiler alert: it was
Dun,
time
dun,
shenanigans.
dun.
And we see a little bit later that Alexander actually goes after we do one arm, we actually go into the second arm, which is Midas, I believe. And we go 3 years into the past to the initial failed summoning of Alexander. And I believe that's when we realized that we were caught in a time loop.
That's after we rescue Roundrocks.
Yeah.
Roundrocks gets kidnapped, and then we have to fight in our way in a bunch. Mead tells us about the artifact from Seal Rock in 1.0, this horn, and shows
that was a throwback. Oh boy.
That was a blast from the past that I had to go researching because I was unfortunately not able to play 1.0. Maybe Bonnie or one of you guys can tell us more about that. I understand that to be Travanchet.
Yeah, if any of you recognize the name Travanchet, yes. He was the original Asian, the Asian villain of 1.0.
I remember that guy in cutscenes that I watched on YouTube.
Yeah, and still have no idea if he was one of the Convocation or a minion. And it drives me insane.
I would dearly love to know as well because it's very mysterious.
They could end up going back to him and using him in, future updates, but
I hope
for now he's a cameo.
Maybe he was auditioning for a black mask. Who knows?
That would be interesting.
Ouch.
He's also the only Elysian inhabiting Asian that we've met so far, correct?
Yes.
I believe so,
Yes.
All the others have been some variety of your...
There's been a lot of theories that he was La Brea, but personally, I don't think the personality fits.
He doesn't have enough bread.
I don't know enough about Travanchet or how he behaved. My experience with him is a still scene of him handing this horn to Mead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in my opinion, what I remember from 1.0 and revisiting some of the cutscenes on YouTube later on, his personality doesn't match any of the Convocation members that we've met.
Well, then it's clearly it was Van Daniel.
Well, there are also a few we haven't met, plus the Black Mask. And
auditioning for a black mask, that's the lowest you can go.
And not even a black mask.
I will say, despite that, he seemed to have fulfilled a very important role. The horn, I mean, we know how Nabriales got when he learned about the horn, more to the point when he learned about the ability he had to access the solar and retrieve Louisoix's weapon. He was like, this is the good stuff, this is the key. He calls it the key. I'd really like to know more about that.
Reforge the key, which he also kind of, did he allude to us as well? All that's left is to reforge the final key.
That was Elidibus. He refers to the final key. If you listen in French and German, it's clear that he's referring to Unakalhai, actually.
There we
Another
go.
warrior of light, however. So, I do think that these horns, the way they draw in ether, seems to be useful for rejoinings at the very least. So,
Sowing the seeds of chaos.
Indeed. And that is exactly what Travanchet did. Here is a powerful artifact. With it, you can create your dream. You can activate the Enigma Codex and summon Alexander. It's not exactly what happened, however, as we'll learn later.
Not at all. Going back to the slide. Mide intends to draw Illuminati attention from Round Rocks. How far down did we go?
I think we finished. I didn't mention it, but Mead is like... Where was I? Sorry, no, I've lost my place. Mead admits that she had used both us and the Illuminati trying to get Alexander activated so that she could once again see her love. And then that's when she leaves and Round Rocks goes after her and gets captured.
Yep. Moving on to number 4. Taken. And its sequel and its sequel.
Yes, Round Rocks is unfortunately grabbed by the Illuminati, which is a problem because she can access and activate the Enigma Codex. And they know this, and they use this, and they chain her to a chair and put this thing over her brain that makes her do what they want, basically. That's also when Shanoa appears to the party, helps them find some people lurking about, and basically inveigles itself with our group. And that's when we also learn about the horn. Because Mead obviously feels very regretful. She's very remorseful over Round Rocks as being taken because of her machinations and realizing that, she has been so focused on the past and on herself and her wants that she hasn't considered the people around her, and now someone has gotten hurt because of that.
And it also has a really good cutscene, which is when I really fell in love with the song Metal.
Oh, which one was that?
Wake the Middle.
Oh, yes, that one's very good.
Actually, the entire Alexander OST is the best in the game. I'm not going to lie. It's the best raid OST.
It's very good. I'm a big fan, definitely. Of course, this is also when we get to see behind the scenes. We see Quick Thinks causing trouble. He's making these vast claims of, I was chosen by time, but he knows these events before they happen with an insane precision. There's one part where Mead and the Warrior of Light are standing on one of those floating platforms inside Alexander. They have the Enigma Codex. There's the fragment, and Quick Thinks wants it. So while his minions are running around chasing after Wegs and Bidge while they play keep away, I have it. Yeah, okay. He just quietly moves his platform over as the Warrior of Light and Mead ascend, and just waits. And then their thing wavers, has a malfunction, and Mead drops the glowstone and it lands right beside him. So it's not like he doesn't know. He obviously has some uncanny source of knowledge. I wonder if it's to do with the book he's holding.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yes,
basically, he is Biff Tannen, and he got Gray's Sports Almanac.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. It's so true. Yes, he is Biff Tannen, and he has the almanac.
Great, now I won't be able to hear his voice without a respirator over it.
But yes, anyway, he uses this uncanny knowledge of future events to get the last piece of the Enigma Codex, to make it whole, and then, so that's bad, and we rush in to try and stop him from changing time, and manage to rescue Round Rocks. She's in a little bit of rough shape. She's obviously quite drained and not having the best day of her life, but she's very happy to see, her friends, and especially Mead. So when Mead shows up, and she's like, I could take you back to then. And Mead's like, wow, I could visit back then. And Round Rocks is like, okay, let's go. And suddenly they're all traveling and being dragged back in time 3 years ago. This is when a lot is revealed. A lot happens all at once, and it doesn't all make sense at the time. In essence, what happens is that instead of being summoned by them, Alexander sends itself backwards in time to that moment and appears. The Illuminati snipers kill the other Hot Goes, the other Ra that were helping them summon, and then Mead is about to get drawn in, I believe, and Diane jumps in front to save her and tells her to steal the primal away, sacrificing himself in the process. And then, of course, the Enigma Codex shadows, giving us the pieces that we find later. Shinoa does something. Oh, that's odd. She hurls herself at Backrix, who's there on top of the Colossus. They're on the top of it, on that, like its jaw, kind of. I don't know how
Yes.
to describe it. And the kitten and the journal both fall to the ground. And then the Colossus returns to the present.
And that's when we discover that we're in a time loop.
Yeah.
Which, for those of you who have played games like that, that's where it can get pretty frustrating for keeping track of events. So let's go to.
So
Go
I want to
ahead.
add something.
Go ahead.
I thought this was extremely Final Fantasy 1, and I thought it was a great callback to that game.
How so?
So Final Fantasy 1 is, for those who haven't played it, spoilers, minor spoilers, the entire game is a giant time loop, and it's about these 4 Warriors of Light who have been trapped in this time loop for who knows how long. But the time loop extends for thousands of years, and it's about them finally breaking free of that time loop. And this really felt like a callback to that thematically, not so much plot-wise, but that there is a beginning, middle, and end, but they aren't necessarily in that order.
That's a good way to put it, actually. Because right there, after this slide and the next one are the beginning, even though it happened most of the way to the end of the story.
Right, yeah.
Right.
So with the Enigma Codex in hand and it broken into pieces, we basically have to restart from 3 years over, and Shinoa is pretty much our only key back to the present, if I recall correctly.
Pretty much.
But now the Aetherite, there is a giant Aetherite at the core. What do you make of that?
Well, Bahamut had a big old chunk of crystal in his heart. We ripped a chunk of crystal out of Garuda. We see the same thing in Titan. I really get the impression that crystal is used for storage, for information storage, maybe even power storage. That's the impression I'm getting from the primals, anyway. It seems like that thing there, and that should be mentioned that crystal was itself fused with the horn, which I'll go into later, but
yeah,
they had become one, which is how it was drawing on and draining the land so badly. It seems like it was the primal, or the heart and core of the primal.
I agree with that. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, much like the crystals we see in the mural of Heidelin and Zodiark.
Yes, very, very true.
I also wanted to add, and this is really my own conjecture, but seeing as how when Crystal XR jumps with the Crystal Tower, they have a space, the ability to move through space and time, where Alexander, we only really see the ability to move through time, but by having that Aetherite-like crystal in the middle of it, it would serve as a grounding point, whereas, the planet, they've established this as a planet in space. It's not its own thing. There are other planets, other solar systems. So we can assume that the planet is moving through space. So if you move through time while the planet is moving, you're going to be in the same spot, and you're going to wind up in space or in the middle of the planet, depending how far you go. And this would allow it to translocate to the same spot space-wise as it moves through time.
Traveling in time, but not in space. That does make sense.
Correct.
We see it move, but only like physical motion, not like translocation, like a teleportation. This
Right.
crystal seems to be one of travel through time, which I'm assuming is due to the primal's nature.
It is due to the primal's nature, yes.
All right.
Moving on to the next slide. Forward and back. So, Maid tells of the artifact given to her long ago, Travanche. the horn from 1.0. So, we touched on this earlier. Do you want to go over the horn's importance now, or do you want to go into how it's kind of...
I think I just got ahead of myself in the outline.
Okay. Do you...
If there's anything to add, this is the perfect time.
Well...
What I find interesting, though, I guess this just occurred to me this moment. The Warrior of Light was sent forward in time. The calamity occurred 5 years ago, before the start of A Realm Reborn. Not getting into the time bubble, that's already 5 years. So the events of 1.0 happened before that. The Alexander here pretty well brings Travanchet into canon, as well as the Horn. Not to mention the effect that Nabrialis also talking about the Horn really kind of legitimized that as well, but this makes it much more solid. But this happened while the Warrior of Light was time traveling, while they were in that 5-year skip forward. So that just seems very interesting to me, and probably not coincidental.
Yeah, you do kind of have to wonder how many times we've been dragged into these situations before. Time, space, well, we have Alexander, we have Omega. But that, I mean...
Yeah.
You do bring up a good point, Korath, about the Tycoon and the twinning. Through our knowledge, pretty much, of Omega and Alexander, we were able to transport the Crystal Tower to the First. Omega for rift travel, the ability to travel between the shards, and Alexander for our ability to go backwards and forwards in time.
Neither of which, I might add, were technologies or methods that the ancients had figured out how to do.
Indeed.
Which is why it surprised Emmett Silk.
Yep, exactly. And
I need to learn more.
right, and everything thematically in Shadowbringers in 5.0, 5.3 was about running out of time and not having enough time. And with Alexander, they could have had all the time in the world, but they didn't.
Indeed.
Imagine if the Ascians had gotten their hands on Alexander way beforehand.
I think that aspect right there is what this entire storyline was getting at. Because as we find out, and I might have to try and find it, Y'shtola makes a comment that I found interesting enough. I actually screen captured and saved it, about that if you have the ability to change the past, all you're going to do is keep changing and keep changing it and keep changing it until, well, in this case, you bleed the land dry because you're using a primal, but you will never live in the future because you're so obsessed with perfection in the past.
So true. Just one change away from making everything right.
Here's the quote, I think. To travel back in time and set past wrongs aright, who could resist such temptation, and how grievous the consequences of surrendering to it? For in allowing the past to consume us and making our every choice, our every action, the correct one, would we not cease to live in the present and in turn lose sight of the future? 'Tis a path not to redemption, but to madness. And I do think that in some ways the Ascians were heading that direction, or would have if they had this power. They're looking back, they want to fix their true world, they want to thing instead of just looking forward, which I understand, I empathize.
100% though.
But it's a problem.
It is still a problem, yes. So let's move on to the next part of the slide. Going back over. Round Rocks rescued and uses the Enigma Codex. So we touched on this a little bit earlier too. Alexander travels back 3 years to the time of its summoning, and then the events that day were unfolded. When the band of Ora tried to resummon, or to try and summon Alexander, and their party was killed off, and Maid's lover Diane was absorbed into the Primal's core. And Funnily enough, she taught the Illuminati how to summon Alexander, hoping if they succeeded, she would see Diane once more. So in essence, she kind of did what the Asians would have done. Just she wasn't suggested to do it.
Indeed. I actually wonder how much she really remembered of that day before the time travel, because something like that is extremely traumatic. And it happened so fast. Like, you watch the cutscene, they get there, the snipers open fire. She probably was just standing there. Alexander appears, and then everyone's dying around her, and she has no idea what's going on. So getting to see it in the future, like,
she probably panicked.
Oh, I don't doubt it. Absolutely. Everything just suddenly went to hell. Suddenly everyone's gone. You're literally the only person of your tribe left. Your lover has been absorbed. Your other comrades lie dead around you. You don't know what happened. Your thing you were using is shattered, and you can't get it to work again. She was having a really bad day.
No.
And her face got sliced open.
And that kind of trauma, I feel like the trauma and the inability to let go because she just didn't have closure, because she probably didn't understand what happened, made it so hard for her to just say, oh, well, summoning primals is bad, so I'm not going to do this. That would, from a character perspective, from a human and imperfect person perspective, you say, oh, well, I didn't want Round Rocks to get hurt. I didn't want her to get kidnapped by the Illuminati, but I couldn't stop thinking about seeing Diane one more time, you know?
And then sowing the seeds of chaos in the meantime.
I should also mention, I think I forgot to put this in the outline, but it was very interesting to me that when she was given the horn, Travanchet told her that it could grant her wish. And you know what she wished? She wished to be with Diane forever.
Big
Big indeed, because that wish was granted in the end, as we'll get to soon.
Yes, it was.
All right, so let's go to the next slide here. Revelations. Backrix recognizes Quick Thinks' future book, his own Watcher book. So, Koron, translate this.
Yes, please.
All right. So, Quick Thinks claims that there's one immutable future and everything is fated to happen because it's in his book. But then he reaches the end of the book at the point when they go back in time and the book gets dropped 3 years before for him to find it. So from that point on, he has no idea of what's going to happen. And so he's just kind of cut loose and he's like, okay, time put me here. I deserve to be here. This is my world now. But I have no idea what to do. So
at that point, yeah, he was basically flying by the seat of his pants, but he had enough, I think, confidence built up from having been right again and again and again. He was like, I can do this. And he forgets that the power wasn't his. He forgets the knowledge wasn't his, that it was a gift.
it was an accident.
It wasn't coincidence, as we find out later. Shanoa sure had something going on. But yeah,
Yes.
when Shanoa knocks the book out of his hand, and then we see it later, I forget exactly how it happened, but Backrix recognizes it and he's like, wait, I know that book. I've been recording, because he's there writing down everything that happens, because that's what he does. He's very meticulous, he's very logical, and he's been writing down all the details. And he's like, wait, that's my book. That's how he knows all of this. And Mead goes from this despair of my pain and suffering was fated forever, and I'm just screwed by fate, to wait. He doesn't know everything. He says the future's immutable, but that's just not true. And she has this fantastic moment of, we choose the future.
Right.
Man chooses his own destiny.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Thanks, Varys.
Man is the master of his own destiny.
But in order for that to happen, man must control the world.
Which is, therein lies the issue.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Quick Thinks was trying to do that too. The problem comes in when you try and determine, I think, someone else's future instead of just your own.
I hate my
agree.
brain. You compare Quick Thinks and Varys, and my brain just immediately starts imagining a goblin with Varys's hair.
Or the size of Varys.
Or both now. Thanks.
Wielding a gun shield.
This has been Cursed Moments with Lorelines. At any rate, the final core, the third core of Alexander, is the one that's controlling motion through time, and they have to shut it down because otherwise it will just keep controlling the land's ether. As mentioned before, it had fully fused with the horn, and as we'll later find out, Diane. So it has to be dealt with.
So I have a point to bring up on this time loop issue, and I don't know if anyone in chat or if any of you guys are familiar with the Lore Runner. He's another lore person. He mainly covers TV show and other games. He has dabbled in 14 a little bit as well, but he really breaks time travel down into 3 different kinds, which is type 1, which is linear time. Everything that does happen has always happened and will always happen. So that means time is an unchangeable line, which is really what this kind of falls into as far as Alexander goes. But when we see time travel happen again in Shadowbringers based on this technology, it's not that kind of time travel because Rahatia is still there. The other timeline still exists. And it wouldn't be type 2 because the other timeline still exists, which is type 2 is more like Back to the Future, where you have things that you can alter in the timeline. This would fall under type 3, which is there are now multiple timelines and parallel universes that we're dealing with.
Sorry about that, I dropped my headphones.
I just thought it was an interesting differentiation between how the time travel worked in Alexander versus how it works later when they're using that technology.
I'm still very suspicious of that difference myself. I feel like if it worked one way one time, having it work a different way is very unusual. So I'm still sort of half waiting for the time loop to close, but we'll see.
I think they screwed it up.
Yep.
You think about the fork, the fork that Shadowbringers created a lot?
Is it a fork or is it a shattered mirror?
It could also, my personal take, and this may or may not prove to pan out at all, but my personal take is that it is a time loop that has not yet closed. We haven't quite gotten our go back to the beginning moment.
For me, I think it was a fork because we were heading down the one timeline where it was a constant calamity happens, age of peace. Calamity happens, age of peace. Calamity is going to happen. We stop said calamity, plus we rejoin without a world falling to pieces. Fork it off and head towards not a calamity of sorts, but a final days. At least that's my take on it.
So we made it worse.
Story, but it
Essentially is what happens.
Midnight Kolrath mentions the short story. It's actually an interesting read. All of the Tales from the Shadows are, honestly, all of the short stories they put out are. But that one, in my opinion, doesn't resolve the issues that I see, which are the fact that the Crystal Tower exists in the first and that it has to return to the source and replace itself to close the timeline, if such a thing is going to be closed.
It would have to go back to Alag in order to do that.
Yep.
And as far as the short story goes, that short story also I find problematic as far as creating a closed time loop and not a fork, because they are still continuing that timeline.
Exactly. It just makes it weird. I will also say, and this is tinfoil hat style speculation, the Crystal Tower disappearing after the fourth calamity being knocked underground, like from a purely physics perspective, from a geological perspective, considering how tall it is, how it just doesn't seem possible. I know we're told this is how it goes. I'm not convinced that it didn't disappear, like it wasn't summoned to the first from the moment of the fourth umbral calamity and then returned at the seventh.
Right.
I'm under the impression that we did make things worse. I mean, had we continued down the regular path and this is going completely off a topic, but I feel like it's a good point
Yeah.
to bring up
Still
anyways.
time shenanigans.
It is still time shenanigans. But I still think that with the removal of the Unsundered, who would have continued the cycle of umbral, astral, umbral, astral, there is no longer an umbral astral. Basically, there is a final days scenario wherein everything will either restart or come to an end, period.
I agree, and that is absolutely a self-inflicted wound on our part.
Believe it or not, that's actually going to come up in Alexander.
Yeah.
I mentioned it a while back when I was replaying it, and I was like, holy crap, you guys, you have to see this. We'll get there.
Then again, that also reminds me of when the Warrior of Light accidentally set Diabolos free.
Oh God.
Oh yeah.
So we caused the Void Arc too, just so you know.
Oops.
Wow, we
We like
screw a lot of
going-
things up.
Yeah, we're basically like, Indiana Jones or Lara Croft. We poke all the things that we shouldn't be poking.
What's at the bottom of this ruined city? Oh, Diabolos. Well, I didn't defeat him. Off he goes. Oh, well, he took over a Void Arc.
Yeah. Oh, there's his
Whoopsie.
wife.
In fairness, I think the Void Arc was already in bad shape, but
Yeah.
it didn't help anything.
It
Not at all.
held the queen, but it wasn't bothering anyone until Diabolos came aboard and was like, oh, I can use her for power. Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the Crystal Tower briefly, though, like, the fact that it just flat out didn't exist in 1.0, and then me coming into 2.0 and seeing that when I got to Mordona, I was so fucking confused. I was like, how the hell did that much of a structure get hidden and then uncovered by the calamity? It's absurd.
So I can answer that, Korath. And this is spoilers for those that didn't finish Bosnia. The Diabolos armament was meant to be a host body for Diabolos, and it wasn't, in fact, an elegant artifact.
Yes. As far as Crystal Tower goes, it was that Garlean elevator technology that we see in the Praetorium that just keeps going on forever. I like to think that it was just kind of like that, pushing it up from the ground. And what do you mean you didn't know where it came from? It was in the opening movie.
Yeah, that the whole part of the Diabolos armament and Diabolos finally getting his what he wanted the powers of the Goth Queen, his Lolita Goth Queen, but instead round 2 came back with the powers of an Alleg artifact, which, anyways, going back to time shenanigans.
Where were we at anyway?
We're at the final core. Fused with the horn, it'll continue to draw the lane's ether.
Ah, yes, that's when we actually we go in to shut the core down.
Hornless.
That's
Did you cut out?
I couldn't hear what you said.
Hornless?
Hornless.
Yeah, sorry. Every time you mention the horn, it just reminds me of Final Fantasy X.
See.
Oh my lord.
Let's not.
This
Continue.
is actually the part Kovaran hinted at before, that we're about to stop things, and then you see a bubble appear, and we're standing in the Cruise Chaser arena, having defeated Cruise Chaser, topical, and chatting with the folks with Garland, the Garland Ironworks folk, and then a bubble appears, and everyone just freezes and just stands there.
Temporal
And then
stasis.
Alexander appears, and at Quick Thinks' command starts charging up an attack. You know, it's just like, haha, you can't escape, you're gonna die. And then at the very last second, that time bubble deactivates. We're able to dodge out of the way. Alexander disappears and leaves a little time rift. Somehow Sid recognizes at a glance that it's a time rift, and it's very impressive, really.
It's kind of like it's kind of like Teleji noticing the wine on the floor and instantly like, oh, poison.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. But yeah, and then that's the point where we enter and fight Alexander. And during the fight itself, there are these rifts that the DPS need to go into, although I guess it doesn't really matter anymore. People need to go into and run around and defeat a few ads, and once you do that, you can see the time bubble deactivate and the people jump out of the way. It's really, really cool.
And that's the part where everyone goes into all these streams and tell these streamers to pay attention to what's below you.
Just let them enjoy it the first time and tell them afterwards, because they're gonna do it again sooner or later. It's in the
Sorry, calling people out.
It gets old to me too, like forcing people to notice things. Yes, you wish you'd noticed when you watched it too, but you would not have enjoyed someone telling you to notice it.
Yep.
That's not how human brains work.
I really loved Alexander's temporal stasis attack on the final one. Like when we fought it, I recognize. So all of the Alexanders that I have fought have either looked one of two ways. Either they had giant ass wings, because it's supposed to be a holy based primal, of course, or it looked like a giant mech city, which, for those that played Final Fantasy X, you know what I'm talking about. For those of you who played Final Fantasy IX, you know what I'm talking about. 9 had the wings as well as being a giant mech. So it was good to see that the design hadn't wavered too much. But now it had, in addition to Holy, all of these new time stop attacks. Not only that, but they were named after several kind of almost like biblical names, like Sacrament, Communion. Neela, help me here.
I don't remember. I need to do the fight again. It's just a fun fight.
It is.
But I think it's a good way of showcasing that even though it's a time-based primal in 14, it's still considered holy. It is a holy relic to the goblins.
It's also something of, and I laughed out loud when the Exarch said this, because I was like, come on, the sacred adjudicator of the timeline. Alexander can actually see all of the possibilities. He went through, he calculated them all, and he picked the one he thought was best and enacted it. Whereas the Exarch, I feel like, is playing with power.
See, I have a question about that, actually. Do you think that when Alexander was looking at all the timelines, that he saw the Exarch's interference?
It's a good question.
That is.
Considering where we're at in the plot line and what Diane tells us, tells the player, tells Mead, I think it's possible. I think it's distinctly probable.
See, and what the cutscenes reveal is that when within the heart of Alexander, Mide is reunited with Diane, and explain that Alexander foresaw all the infinite possible futures, and it concluded that its own existence would inevitably bleed the land dry of ether, causing the end of the world.
Is that? I'm sorry, can you put it on the next slide?
Oh, yes.
Because that's where we're at, and we should just...
Yeah. There we go. An end to mark a new beginning. Nakor is sent beyond time.
Yeah, once Alexander is defeated, Rox can shut it down. And then Quick Thinks, who was shot by me, is like, ha ha ha, I'm not a physical being, I have machine parts, I'm not killed by that. And he's like, I actually found it very funny, I rewatched it before the show today, and I forget the exact wording, but it was something like, strike the ignorant people. And Alexander's like, okay, and kills Quick Thinks. Instead of, as he expected, killing our party.
Exactly.
With Quick Think's no longer meddling with it, Mead quickly recognizes that Diane is still in there, still aware and recognizing her. Probably no doubt a good part of why it didn't try to kill us. And she lets herself fall into the core so that she can be with. And that's what you were talking about with the eternal instant.
And was it not when she threw herself into the core, was it not frozen? Was it not frozen in time?
At the moment when she threw herself in, it was not. It was still siphoning ether. But as soon as she goes in, we see this scene, and the two of them put the core into stasis, into this time rift that's beyond time and beyond the reach of men. And that's when they enter this eternally repeating moment where they can be together forever.
There you go. So Alexander just is stuck in a instant time loop forever.
And like I mentioned when I said that Alexander calculated all the possible futures and picked the one that he thought was best. He picked the one where he changed nothing and removed himself. It's actually really cool. You don't see this with other primals. Other primals don't be like, I seem to be leaving the land dry. This is bad. I mean, to a degree removed, but not even close to this degree.
No, not even.
I don't recall. Sorry, I don't recall any other primal saying, "Wow, I suck. I should not be here."
Exactly. So it's part of what makes Alexander the Primal so incredibly unique.
I do want to really, if he was still around, I really want to ask, what timelines did you see, or did you foresee yourself kind of wavering to change?
Who knows? Maybe Endwalker's going to be so fucked up that we have to have a chat with both Alexander and Omega.
That would be interesting.
Well, you're hopeful for that. The Omega Mark II.
As we've taken to calling it.
I want it.
Omega Mark II versus G Warrior Mark II. Let's go.
Please do not tell Nero that he could make something better than Omega, because he'll try.
Oh no.
No, don't tell him he can't make something better than Omega.
He will.
Yes, you're right.
Also, just a brief side tangent. I wish that player characters had some scar options like Mide has, because her eye scar is something I would like to have on a player character. Like, goddamn, give us better options, please.
Just try and scratch your eyes out. Done.
No.
Oh my.
No, everyone in Eorzea must be beautiful.
Apparently, unless you pick the old face.
Which is just uncanny valley for me when I look at the old face options. But that's another tangent entirely.
It is. Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. Neela Koberon.
So this is actually a pretty neat time travel story. There's no real Bootstrap Paradox here, which the Notebook was almost in danger of becoming. The Enigma Codex might be, but I doubt it. This is pretty neat.
What exactly would you describe a Bootstrap Paradox as? Because I think I'm understanding it differently than you.
Sure. So a Bootstrap Paradox is where something does not have a clearly defined beginning or end. So if someone brings something back in time from the future, like a book of history, and gives it to you, and it alters the course of your life so that you create a time machine so you can go back and give yourself the book, where did the book originally come from?
Where did Alexander originally come from is my question to you then.
Right.
Alexander
I have
did
no
not
idea.
get summoned. Alexander came back from the past to appear at the moment when it was about to be summoned. And then it went into stasis. Or no, rather, it went back in time, did that, was summoned, and then it went back to the future, stood dormant, was awoken, had all this stuff happen, and then went back in time to that moment.
Right.
It
But-
wasn't actually summoned. It undid
But-
its own summoning. That's why I put that.
Okay. Okay. It's possible. Because there is no strictly one moment where Alexander was summoned. It just kind of appeared.
Well, they were summoned by the Ora tribe. They were the first ones
It
who
was not.
attempted to summon.
Right. They
to
attempted,
summon,
but they
and then it
failed.
Came
They
back
failed.
in time at that moment.
And the well, as we said earlier, it's pretty much Howl's Moving Castle. They were constructed. It was constructed as a citadel for scholars, but nothing really powered it, as far as we know, anyways. Unless we get some backstory later.
It's powered by ether.
A lot of ether.
What's up with the cat?
The cat's amazing and the best character in the storyline.
I don't disagree.
It
It's
shoots little hearts
it's
out at you.
It's cute. It's way too cute. It's not fair. It's actually revealed to be a clockwork creation by Alexander, not actually an animal at all, which is, how it stayed a kitten so long and never grew up, and turned yet cranky or too scary to hang out with people. Basically, Alexander created it as an extension of its will so that it could nudge the timeline back into shape whenever it started getting bent out of alignment. And we see this a few times. We see it on top of the Colossus when we're back in the past with what's his name? With the watch book, with the information gets knocked down and dropped into the past. As a result, that book travels into the future, is in Quick thinks his hand, and then she again knocks it out of his hand, so he no longer has that tool, that information.
And at one point, there are the two cats, Schrodinger.
Mm-hmm.
Schrodinger's cat.
An apt name as such.
I will say though, at the end of the storyline, when it was just the cat hopping around and wandering off into the world, I found that incredibly happy and emotionally impactful at the same time, because it's like it accomplished its mission and now it can be free, kind of like how Omega was, but more of a, instead of you've been beaten and now you can grow in this other way, it's you fulfilled your task, now go live your own life.
Cat being the true hero. The tribe that sired itself.
Do you want?
Incest.
You just brought that up out of nowhere. Wow.
I don't believe it was incest.
Time out for 5 minutes.
I had to do it before Bonnie did.
I wasn't even gonna go there, so you get double bonked.
Oof.
Neela, go ahead.
I'm not wrong though.
You're in timeout.
We find out that the ones that tried to summon Alexander were the last of their tribe, the rest of them having fallen to something unknown or possibly just decline. Not clear. Or if it is clear, I've forgotten, which is possible. And then, of course, Mead's the only one to survive in the end. But then the two of them, Mead and Diane, are in this part of the primal. And basically the idea is, well, someday when the world is no longer rife with suffering, when it's a peaceable, perfect world, they may be able to come out and live once more. And as it happens, that seems to be what did happen. It somehow went back in time and dropped them off. Let me find the exact... Actually, if you want to show the pictures, they are in Discord. Up to you.
For... Oh, okay.
Basically, the idea is that Backrix is reading a fairy story book, I believe, telling of the Hotgo tribe, uplanders with blue hair. It says, many, many years ago in old times, two children, boy and girl, outstepped from belly of great steel giant. 2 children grow to man and woman, becoming father and mother of great people of Hakko. Names of 2 are Diane and Mead. Look at hand drawing, even faces are same looking. Then Wedge says, "Ye gods, if that's our Mead and Diane, why, that means one day they'll be freed from their fate and reborn far, far in the past."
Sorry, trying to bring it up here. It requires me to do a whole different scene capture.
Oh no.
So this is all you.
All who?
Oh. So after searching for near an eternity, they finally found the perfect world they were searching for. It may be just a fairy tale, but I, for one, would like to believe it. It's a cute little story. And fairy legend goes on. 2 children step out of steel giant holding small stone. Stone is dark when sitting on ground, but holds stone in hand and shiny lights. So it doesn't seem to be just any Mead and Diane. It seems to be our Mead and Diane. In the
Names
past
2 are Diane and Maid. Look at handwriting. Even faces are same looking. Ye gads, if that's our Maid and Diane, why, that means one day they'll be freed from their fate, reborn in far, far in the past. So after searching for near an eternity, they finally found the perfect world where they were searching for. It may be just a fairy tale, but I, for one, would like to believe it. And fairy legend goes on. 2 children step out of steel giant holding small stone. Stone is dark when sitting on ground, but holds stone in hand and shiny lights. Let me see if this is straight. A codex fragment you gave to a curl a few moments ago now features a giant in ages past. This can't be possible, can it? Yes, it can. Oh, here's a picture of the crystal.
Yes. I do find it interesting that that they're children again. Some sort of rebirth seems to be at play, and I'm curious how that could work. Although I suppose it makes sense considering that they probably do not have bodies in this crystal. Like we saw Mead kind of evaporate as she fell into the core, so still very interesting.
And from here, you can just see the kind of like the size, some of the size and scale of Alexander's kind of control room.
Actually, looking at that reminds me, there's a crystal much like that one in the center of the crystal tower.
Yes.
There is.
Just sitting there
Oh,
like
no.
another primal heart. Great. Cool.
We've got Bond's brain going again.
Yep.
Excellent. I don't see how the crystal tower couldn't be a primal-like entity, being what it is, full of hope, a beacon that people have prayed to. I mean, praying to Ultima made her self-aware.
That's true.
Just saying.
Yeah, it's super sus. That's all I'm saying.
I'm not saying the tower's a primal, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
The closing of the time loop.
Honestly, and I apologize because I did my best, but the fact of the matter is the story is quite confusing and convoluted and loops back on itself. Hopefully this has helped clarify details that weren't super clear, but in essence, Alexander thwarted its own summoning by going back in time, so an existing entity could not be summoned into existence, and then manipulated events to put its own core into a time loop beyond the reach of men. And
Yes.
All of that has happened, did happen, and all that was going to happen happened.
And will happen again.
Exactly.
Yet somehow, some way, the Ironworks were smart enough to recreate Alexander in some way, shape, or form.
Spectacular fashion.
And Omega's abilities too. Like holy crap. Moving on to the last slide. The after effects of Alexander. – Ooh, actually, we were just touching on this.
Mm-hmm. I will say we see an Alexander-like entity in the twinning that has the Ironworks colors. I'm very curious about that entity. I want to know more. Was it built? Was it summoned? Was it some combination like the large Alexander itself seems to be? As far as I know, these questions aren't really answered. It's very suspicious.
I like to think that it was built.
I find that a fairly logical belief, but then how is it powered? How does it have access to time? Can you just build a time machine without primal? I don't know. I would really like to know.
I would argue that you would need a power source on par with that of a primal or whatever feeds
The
it.
Crystal Tower.
Like the Crystal Tower, exactly.
Because the Exarch wouldn't... I mean, the Exarch is joined to it in some way, but he wouldn't be able to power it. So, its power source would come from the Crystal Tower itself, which, of course, we all know in ages past, an Alag served as a reservoir of ether and as a power source and as a means of collecting energy from Dalmut, although not very well.
Another thing I found interesting, and this is the short story that Midnight Kulroth mentioned earlier, the tower does not travel to the first. The Exarch travels to the first and summons the tower to it. Somehow the Exarch himself goes there, possibly sent via the tower. I mean, it's not really clear. The story doesn't go into details, as I recall.
Emmett's mentioned that he was came here with the tower.
Yeah, he mentioned that, but this story says otherwise, which is very weird to me. It very specifically says he walks off, he disappears. And then when you arrive in the first, you talk to the Exarch, and he says, I summoned the tower.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. It's one of those things where I've looked at it and I'm like, okay, is this some kind of weird translation issue or miscommunication between the teams, or like how seriously do we take it?
I feel like it's either a mistranslation, miscommunication, or someone is lying about the exact details, and we're going to find out.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that it was the Exarch lying when he tells us that, because at that point he's still trying to maintain his cover story. So unless he wants to say that he's from the source, which he's not going to say, he would have to say that he summoned the tower.
Well, because remember, he kept a lot of things from us in the beginning.
He did. I believe that he told us, you can say you're from the same land as me, indicating, yeah, he was also from the source. So that shouldn't,
That's true,
be the issue. But again, who knows?
The only person he really talked to about his plans, at least in some kind of length, was Urianger.
Mm-hmm.
And he revealed his plans to us, a little bit of them anyways. He didn't reveal all of them. Still, when he tried to absorb all of the light from us at the end, or at the after the fight with Innocence.
That's bastard. That was our light.
Yeah, I wanted to die with that. Do you mind?
Yeah.
You all are suicidal, I swear.
That was a joke.
I wanted to turn into a Light Warden, damn it.
Is that the opposite of a goth?
No, like, I was really hoping that we would end up turning into a Light Warden and have an RP event as the Scions and possibly Emmett Selk having to, like, beat our own ass as them. Because I thought that would have been a really cool conclusion to the Shadowbringer story.
You need more caffeine.
It would be interesting. It would be interesting to play as, our comrades performing a similar function to the Warrior of Light as we did to La Habrea in Thancred.
Exactly.
Sin Eater's gotta pop them collars, yo. Let's go a little bit back into and talk a little bit more about the twinning, because That's a really good subject. So when you go through the dungeon and you get down to the lower levels, there is all kinds of green stuff. And moving forward, or just moving around, causes a kind of effect on you that makes you see double.
Yeah, there's this warping throughout the whole thing. It's actually, that area is even called the underworld, which I'm very suspicious of.
Right?
Which means
Yeah,
that the
and
underworld was what the ancients called the life stream.
and it's full of that green energy.
And these weird constructs, gra, whatever's. I think we see the same or similar creatures in the.
You see them in Pharaoh's Sirius. Yeah. Which has absolutely nothing to do with the twinning, but you see the same type of mobs.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and for those that completely skipped in reading the little lore pages, it is highly suggested by almost unanimously by everyone that you do the Alexander and Omega raids before doing the twinning. Because if you do, the pages that are scattered throughout the area of the dungeon will make so much more sense and be so much more impactful.
Or at the least, go back in and explore mode afterwards so that you can really get the full scope.
When you go down into that greenish area, you can actually see the ironwork sign above, written on the inside. We'll just say the inner tower, because you're actually in the tower, but there's another tower inside the tower. And it is marked with the ironwork symbol. And you are going through it, and you meet the boilers that Wedge made for Tataru. It's the little coffee pots.
I never noticed that.
The Boil Master.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So cute. I was also going to point out that when you're actually fighting the what's that boss called? I'm looking on the name. The like, it's like a mogul, but not the final boss of Twinning.
Tycoon.
The Tycoon. Thank you. Which, what an interesting name. When you're actually fighting the Tycoon, you can't see this in Explorer mode. I checked recently, but when you're actually fighting, look around the arena at the portals around the edge. You'll actually see shots of the Ironworks folks during the Alexander quest line. They're up in these little portals. And when you destroy them, they all shut down and close down.
Oh, it's not just the Alexander quest line.
That's Crystal Tower as well.
It's Bahamut. There's Bahamut. There's one from each of the 12 raids. There's Omega, there's Bahamut, there's Crystal Tower. He chooses moments in time from a lot of the different raids.
I hadn't caught them all, probably because I've mostly been trying to fight during that time. Need to bring some friends in so I can take it a little slower and get a better look, I guess.
Yeah, if you get a group that doesn't instantly pull, you can look around the arena too, because the images are there before you pull as well.
Yep.
When this was fresh, and it was still new, the party that I went in with first time, they did the same thing as me. We just kind of stood there like,
nice.
Are you for real? These are all scenes from what we did before.
Yeah.
Midnight Kolrath brings up a good point. It's the scenes like Eden's Promise where there's background shots that Warrior Light's memories. I think that's a very good catch. I think it's supposed to mimic that in a thematic way. Obviously, to me at least, I think it's straightforward to assume that the Tycoon's images are portals through time, since it's somehow connected to the time power. We see similar time powers in the Tycoon fight, but the other one would be memory, since memory was the theme of that. But the snapshots idea is very much the same, and I find that very interesting.
Yeah, it's for those that want to do this today or tonight or whenever. Definitely go back through the twinning and check out the final area. There is shots from every raid series, not just from the 12 raid series. There's shots from the Crystal Tower, there's shots from Bahamut, everything that is relevant to how the Warrior of Light got stronger, pretty much, is there and on display. So it's pretty much if you've read the short story, you know that the people that summoned the tycoon, or the people that actually made the tycoon, the Ironworks and all of their friends and family who helped on the project, were inspired by us and our deeds. So it was essentially showing our deeds, our greatest achievements, our greatest foes on screen, and showing all of our trials that we've overcome. It's just, yeah, it's literally just being slapped by memory lane. You overcame Bahamut, you overcame the Crystal Tower, you overcame Omega, you overcame Alexander. It's, this is their memory of you being displayed.
And I think the context, to me at least, it suggests that these are actual portals through time accessing this information, possibly accessing the powers that these things are displaying. That's just a guess at this point, but the fact that they all shut down tells me at least that they were something more than just pictures, that they were actual, connections to another time and place.
Yeah.
I would half agree. I would say that while not portals that you could pass through, I would say that they're windows.
That's a good word for it, actually.
Yeah, so that you could actually look into different times while not actually going there.
100% agreed. I think that's a way better way of putting it. Thank you.
I also want to add that Tycoon is actually a reference to Tycoon and King Tycoon from Final Fantasy V, who is Lena's father.
Ah, I hadn't connected that. That's a good catch. I always thought that was a bit of an odd name.
Yep, it was not out of nowhere. Yep, King Alexander Tycoon. Thank you.
So,
I also want to bring up one last thing about the Crystal Tower that is still troubling me to this day, and I think will continue to trouble me into Endwalker. The Exarch has a rule. There's a reason all these people live in all these buildings. The Crystarium, which has sprung up around the base of the Crystal Tower. But no one aside from the Exarch himself lives in the tower. He has forbidden everyone from living in it because he says one day it might disappear, just as mysteriously as it arrived. I think most people assume, well, that didn't end up happening because of, the events of 5.3 and on. I'm still waiting for it to disappear myself, though.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have a ghost in there that can drive it around.
We also have a Graha on the source, who, as I tinfoil hatted the other day, in the case something should happen to our Crystal Tower, could summon one from the first, perhaps.
Yes, steal all their hope.
They have their own hope now. They have built their hope. They have learned how to make their own beacons of hope.
Reen will just give them some more, don't worry.
Exactly.
Where'd the Crystal Tower go? Oh, it's with Reen.
And that's one thing that Final Fantasy does well, in my opinion. You don't do quests in a zone, move on to a new zone, and then you have all these expansion zones, and then they die because you never ever go back. The story brings you back. The characters bring you back. You need to visit so and so because they are the expert on this. Well, that's in the Heavensward Zone. Off we go. I do think the first will be at least passingly relevant here and there. Probably not a huge thing. Probably very side, but I do think we'll be going back there now and again.
I agree. I think there's still some relevant story going to be taking us to the first.
That'll be a very bad date. Crystal Tower skips on the check, disappears.
Yes, and we still have the Void quests on the first.
Very true.
We're about to reach the point where we need to get into our giveaway. But before we do that, is there any questions people might have? Actually, let me go back to the PowerPoint real quick.
Any details that weren't clear?
Questions,
Because, my
confusion,
goodness,
comments.
There were a lot.
Yeah, this was a lot to digest, especially with Alexander. Timey-wimey stuff. Is there anything you were unclear on? If there's anything we can clear up for you, comments. We love to talk to chat.
even just your own theories, your own ideas on. Because I mean, we've offered our perspective. Oh, I think this, I think that. What do you guys think?
And if you happen to need more time to adjust, you can always join our Discord
You're
and
gonna
ask
be
us
muted.
there.
That's true. Yes, other series have been notorious for it.
That was awful.
I had to type it up.
Time is flat.
Not you
round-shaped.
too, Whisper.
Nah, Whisper gets it. The glowy figure did say something along the lines of "the future is in your hands." Oh, that reminds me of something
Twooey?
I forgot to mention when we're seeing the scene of Mead and Diane in this core. Diane actually says, after he talks about the construct calculating all the futures and deciding to recuse itself essentially from reality, he says, "A time will come when the fate of this world is placed in the hands of one warrior." It shows your character at this point. It's pretty clear what's going on. For reasons hidden to me, the future from that day forth remains shrouded in mystery, beyond even the Colossus's ability to calculate. And yet Alexander chose to believe in that man, that woman, and the light within him, within her. And I believe me after that says, "Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about. It'll be fine. They got this." Which is just so interesting to me. I really do feel like Endwalker has been the culmination of this cutscene right here. Because we know that they had a general plan idea of the overarching story.
Meaning we were beyond Alexander's ability to compute.
I feel like this end that we are approaching that will hopefully herald a new beginning.
Hopefully.
Not actually worried, but I am worried about how we're going to get there.
Wouldn't it be wild if the reason Alexander can't compute our existence is because we don't necessarily belong in this timeline?
That would be really interesting.
Oh, that would be crazy.
I mean, that's just you saying we're trash. Thanks.
No.
Wow.
We would be a sort of Alexander in this case, setting things to right and then living in a world where there's no need of heroes. Well, what good are we then?
You mean Emmett Selk's world?
Yep.
Well, I don't think Emmett Selk's world is the only world that will have no need of heroes. A perfect world doesn't need heroes because everyone is a hero in a way, you know? Or being a hero is normal, or nothing's messed up so you don't need people to go fix it. That is an ideal living situation. As boring of a narrative as that would be, it's kind of where we all want to live most of the time. At least if you go through enough adventure, you'd be like, yeah, this sucks. I want boringness again.
I like having it as an ideal to strive for, but something that can never really truly be attained.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's something that humans can't truly attain because we keep messing each other up.
Yeah.
Trauma and the like.
But speaking of like the time stuff, we didn't really touch on, like, we touched on Graha traveling through time and whatever. But one of the reasons I'm like, you know, maybe we're an anomaly is the Warriors of Light have been sent through time before.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that.
Louis Soir, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Now, what kind of magic do you think he possessed in order to send us through time?
Oh, I know.
Go ahead.
So this actually ties into the video that we have scheduled for Thursday, which is kind of like the inverse of Azem's power and Althik, because you see the symbol of Althik when Louis was casting the spell. You see the hourglass come up, but I don't necessarily think that it's directly attributed to whatever convocation member Althik was derived from, if it was even close to like a 1 to 5. So it was just his perception of that, saying, I need to translocate these people, not only through space, but through time, inverting Azem's power, using the time power that he had developed after researching Allthic and having the power of the primal basically suffusing the land around him and just kind of yeeting them into the future for an indeterminate amount of time.
This game does love sacrifice. Actually, no, it doesn't. Because as soon as we hit Shadowbringers, people started sacrificing themselves and no one died. Oh, no one's going to jump on me about this, and no one's going to jump on me how I desire death among the Scions?
Again, I'm gonna bring up balance again. Though people say sacrifice bad, sacrifice good. You know, you can't sacrifice too much. You can only sacrifice so much, and you have to determine what is worth. Is this thing worth sacrificing your life? Your life is precious and irreplaceable. It's probably not.
Sin must be balanced with suffering. Yes, they can.
So one thing I want to just mention that I'm really looking forward to in Sharlayan is they wanted to have a kind of in-game lore library. I really think they're going to do that with Sharlayan. I really hope so.
I would like to, well, you know what? I bet by the time that Endwalker comes out, book number 3 will be released, or being in the process of being written out and be up for release.
Better be purple.
Consider also, what if it was like shattered, broken crystal indication on the cover this time?
No, what's going to happen is they're going to divide it up into 14 smaller books, and they're all going to be...
Oh my god.
Stop it. Or it'll be like the Codex where you have to get it piece by piece. Not only that, but it's sold at only specific times of the day.
Or it's just going to be the book itself is shattered into 14 pieces and you have to puzzle it together and also somehow keep it together while trying to turn the pages.
Tape not included.
God damn it, Koji.
About that giveaway, though.
About it.
Yes, it is time.
Is it though?
I think it is.
All right. So let me add up stream marbles. Woo.
All right. Everybody in the audience, pick a map. Just put a number in between 1 and 50.
Yep. Pick a map. There's community maps. Let's see. We'll do viewer choice.
See, 3 for 32.
Type of slash or exclamation point vote for the number.
Is it working?
It had better be.
Yep,
Oh, yeah,
it's working.
I see.
There's 3 for robotic roadway. Yes, you can only vote once. 2 for Temple of Steve. Didn't we use Temple of Steve last time?
We did.
Because it's number 42.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, the best number.
Yes.
All right, 3 votes for 32, which means we have to run 23.
Three votes for which one?
32.
32.
That's the winner. So, no, don't pick 23. Pick 32.
I have 32 picked. Since we have less people in here from last time, viewer. So now, exclamation point race, or exclamation point play rather, for joining.
And there they are.
There they are. Yep. If you aren't seen on screen, then redo it. Exclamation point play. To join.
Top 3 get a cruise chaser.
Oh, this is going to be pachinko. This is going to be great.
What could go wrong?
Okay.
Yeah, it could be,
Ready?
It looks like everyone.
there we go.
How far down does this thing go?
Oh, pachinko
Oh, wow.
going down all the way. And we've got quite a bit.
Oh no.
It's like Wings of Wars and nope, never mind. Heading up to, oh, that goes all the way up there. Wow. What's an elevator? And then one's a cannon. That is in the lead. And then they go down into this.
Oh no.
Oh, one fell.
Those spinners have me worried.
Sludge died. Oh, looks like we have a few dying.
Oh no.
Haywood died.
No, we've got a few. This is quite a cliff there.
What
Oh,
are
that's
they
crazy.
bouncing- What are they bouncing off of?
Magnetism.
Whoa! That one went flying.
Oh my.
Big oof.
This one was evil.
This one is.
It is evil.
Hey, you guys
Hope
picked
we
it.
have 3 survivors. If not, we'll just have to do it again.
Yep.
Yeah,
in a
there's
time-
1,
Caught in a time loop.
2.
Where is the third?
Hey. It's still back there.
Oh no.
You got this. Looks like
Only
Wings
the
of
best
War,
part.
Whisper
And we only have 3 make it through.
Yep.
Only the best marbles
Oh my
have
God.
survived Such a tragic fate.
There you
See,
are.
All
Final
right,
result.
Tarkia, number 1, and who's 2 and 3?
Whisper Lafell, and Wings of War X.
Awesome, congratulations.
Woo!
Yeah,
Only
congrats
3
for winning.
survived.
Thanks
That-
for playing, everybody. That was
That was interesting.
that was a bit exciting.
Congrats, Terry, by the way. I know Tarkia. She's a member of my FC.
Nice.
Yep, I will Twitch message the winners later with their winnings.
3 Cruise Chaser mounts will be sent out today.
Awesome,
for
thank you
those
guys
of you-
for joining us.
For those that haven't got it yet, for those that won anyway, if you haven't got it yet, we'll be sending it out to you. Collusion.
This is why we use the marbles, so there's no favoritism or anything.
The marbles have their favorites.
I
The
did.
marbles have their favorites, but they're not our favorites. It's fine. They may or may not be our favorites. I'm not allowed to disclose whether or not they're the same.
What if everyone in the stream is our favorite?
It's true. It is
And
weird.
nobody's our
You
favorite.
guys coming out to support us means so much. We love talking about this sort of thing, but we just be a bunch of nerds talking to each other without you guys here to listen and ask questions and make comments.
Yes.
So thanks so much for coming out.
Thank you very much. As we close this out, we are going to discuss what topic to be presented next week. We have a very long list of topics that we'd like to get into. We also have a list of topics that we are going to create individual videos for, which I think you all love. So keep tuned in to our Twitch channel for weekly videos and for our YouTube channel for our individual videos that we're going to be presenting. So it's going to be nonstop content for you guys to check out and enjoy. And thanks for coming out. We love all your support. We hope to see you next week.
Yeah, thank you all.